Hello and welcome to At Home with Mindy. Today we're going to make a coffee and walnut cake. So for this we're going to use 175 grams of margarine. This is the baking type of margarine, the block one. We'll just quickly soften it up. And then we'll add 175 grams of caster sugar. Sorry, I don't know if my fingers are in the way. You can do this with a mixer, but it can be noisy. And you'll want to keep mixing the two together till it gets creamy and slightly paler yellow. Then we've got 3 eggs I've already made, and we're just going to beat them up quickly. Just so they're all mixed in together. We're going to add about half of it. And just stir that in. If it looks like it's not mixing in very well, if it sort of ends up looking a bit curdly like that, a simple thing to do is just get a bit of your flour, and that helps to sort of bring it all back together. You want to give it a good beating, help get some air into it. And then we're ready for the second half of the egg. And a spoon of flour again. So that it looks a bit like that. Then with our 175 grams of flour, I have it's self-raising flour, but you'll need 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and I'll put a pinch of salt in as well to help bring out the flavour of the nuts. So let's just stir that through. And here I've got 50 grams of nuts. Some recipes say 100, but I don't want it too nutty. And I've just whacked them with a rolling pin to make them into pieces, because they were whole nuts. And I have always added my nuts to the flour, stirred it in, because for some reason if they've got a coating of flour they don't seem to sink to the bottom of the cake all the time. And then we just start adding the flour. I'm not going to do it all in one go because that's a lot of stirring. I'll do a gentle stir. Oh, that's a big bit of nut that didn't get crushed. Put that. Some people like to, because it's a coffee and walnut cake, they like to put the coffee into the cake as well. But I only like to actually add it to the icing so that you can still taste the nuts. That is all the flour stirred in, so we didn't really need a mixer anyway, it wasn't that hard. And that's what your cake mixture will look like. And I think 50 grams of walnuts looks like it's a lot of nuts anyway, so 50 grams is plenty. Then I've got a 9-inch square tin, and I've greased it and lined it because it's a solid bottom one. I want to make sure the cake actually comes out. And then all we do is spoon it into the tin. So I'm going to have to be rude and stretch across the tin. You can do this in 2 tins, but I know from the Victoria sandwich mix I did that my tins aren't big enough to hold a 3 egg mixture. So I thought I'd do it in a square one, and we'll just slice it in half afterwards. Because it just needs that bit of extra room. I could scrape that out better later, but just keep the video short, we'll do that off screen. And then you just want to spread it into the corners. And then try and get as much of the mixture off the wooden spoon. And then once that bit's done, you just put it in the oven for 25 minutes, maybe 30 because it's both tins in one. And we'll pop back when the cake's cooked and see how it looks. Right. Welcome back to At Home with Mindy. The cake, I forgot to tell you, was 180 degrees. But because of putting it all in one tin, it actually took 40 minutes to cook. And because I kept checking it, it sunk. But we will be able to correct that by just turning it upside down. No one needs to know. Right. And then we've got a big bread knife, and we're going to cut it into 2 layers. Bread knives are easier because they're serrated. So we've got that into 2 halves. I'll get a second plate out. Sorry, that was my dog running into the door. Door's open, but she ran to make sure. Right. So we've got, so I'll sweep up later, pushing the crumbs on the floor. So you can see there's a nice layer of walnuts. And then for the coffee icing, we've got 100 grams of soft margarine. You can use any brand you want. This happens to be one of those ones that says ideal for cakes. But I've just been trying to soften it up. And we've got 200 grams of icing sugar. So we'll put some of the icing sugar in. And give it, we'll gently stir it in so I don't make too much mess. I'll go a little bit faster now. I'm adding it in slowly, hoping that it won't all fly out the bowl. Oh, and it still did it. Right, this is the quantity that it says on the packet of icing sugar when it gives a recipe. So it's coming together now, so we can stir faster. So it's not very creamy looking at the moment, but that is the basic icing, butter icing recipe. And then all we need to do is, there's 1.5 tablespoons of just instant coffee powder. And then using one of these spoons, it says 1 tablespoon. This is boiling water, so be careful. You just want to dissolve the coffee into it. You don't want to use too much water, or else you're going to end up with too runny icing. But just stir it to get rid of, make sure it's all melted. Smells delicious. And then you just tip that into your icing. And now it looks really dark. But that little bit of water has helped loosen it up and make that should be nice and spreadable then. Just trying to make sure it's not too marbly looking. Hopefully it's going to be enough icing to go around. Because this is going to be the bottom of the cake, even though it's the top that was sunken. I'm just going to probably put about half on, because I'm only decorating the middle and the top. I'm not doing the sides. Actually, it might be a bit, you could go thicker if you wanted by putting some more icing powder in. But we just want to spread it around. I also didn't manage to cut it very level. I think that's because I was rushing for the camera. At home you should have more time to make sure it looks pretty. But that looks like it would be plenty. Looks a little bit thin there. That's plenty of icing for that bit. And then this would have been the bottom of the cake. And I'm putting it around the wrong way. Turns out it's not a square tin. If I'd had more walnuts, I would have saved some for the top. But I literally only had 50 grams in the house. So we get the rest of our icing and just plump it in the middle. So we'd spread it out again like we did in the middle. Because we're using the back of the spoon, we've got a pretty sort of like rippling effect going on. And you don't want too much icing because it is all just sugar and butter after all. Not good for the waistline. And then we'll just try cutting a slice so you can see how well the walnuts distributed by putting them in with the flour. See, you have walnuts at the top and the bottom. Looks pretty sure it's cooked all the way through. Looks a little bit dark on the camera, but that is just a basic coffee and walnut cake. So hope you enjoy making your own, and I'll see you next time. Bye.